I had to explain Vulcan right now, I'd say we're the biggest dark horse coming into it.
We are very good friends outside the game and inside the game.
If any team does well, I'm happy for them. Even if I got last place in the tournament right now and what American team won it, I still feel like we did a good job.
We do focus on the bigger picture, but when it's time to focus on the game, we like to focus on the game and our strategies.
Our team consists of versatile players. We can play mostly anything. Our summer season has been a blast for us. We've been improving a lot.
Definitely was a struggle just to get to where we are right now.
We're kind of an underdog team, but make sure that you don't underestimate us.
I would definitely say we're an exciting team because you never know if we're going to win no matter how far ahead we are.
We do have the second best record in the season, and we're very proud of that.
Welcome back to the group stage of the Season 3 World Championship live from Los Angeles, California. In just a few minutes, Vulcan and Gambit square off in our second game of the day. But first, I'd like to welcome Mineski's jungler Kaigu to the interview lounge. Thanks, first of all, for joining us, Kaigu. You got some fans here, that's for sure. I want to take it a step back before all this crazy action here at Worlds to your qualification process. You took down SGS in a qualifier that you shouldn't have actually been there in the end. Talk us through that and how it feels to be here at Worlds.
When we beat SGS, I think that they played good, but we just played better. And here at Worlds, we're trying to learn as much as we can, and so we can do better next time.
So let's talk about your trip here as well, because I think that's one thing that a lot of people underestimate. I'm still tired and I only came here from Europe. So talk us through your trip from the Philippines here to LA and how it affects you in your game.
So our flight was, I think, around 12 to 13 hours. And I don't think it really affects us that much. But during the afternoons, all of us tend to get sleepy, like 3 p.m. Yeah.
I know that feeling. I've had it pretty much every single day for the week that I've been here. So let's talk about your preparation for the World Championships themselves. What kind of training regime did you have? How many hours were you spending? What were you doing? And which teams were you really focusing on in your group?
Before we came to LA, we had a 1-week boot camp at the Philippines. And we played for like 6 hours a day. And then we watched some replays for 2 hours. Like replays of Gambit, Fnatic, and Vulcan.
How do you think your style differs to those teams, to the Korean teams, the European teams, and Vulcan in your group?
I think that the Southeast Asian region focuses more on the extended lasing phases and late game team fights.
So we have to talk about where you are right now. 0 for 3 in the group stage. Number one, can you turn that record around and have a positive win ratio at the end? And number two, which teams do you feel capable of taking down here?
I think we can turn it around if we just commit less mistakes early game, like not dying in lane and not giving up free dragons. And yeah.
So which teams then? Which teams are you looking at to say, we can beat these?
We have a match later against Vulcan. I hope we can do well against them.
Against their North American crowd here as well. That would be a big bonus for you guys, I think. And last of all, a little bit of time for you to shout out to your fans back home, because I'm sure there are a lot of them staying up to watch you right now.
Hello to the fans of from the Philippines and wow.
And your fans here as well.
Hello to the fans here and shout outs to Mineski, our sponsors Razer and Monster.
Thanks a lot, Kaigu, and good luck in your remaining games here.
Thank you.
So let's send it over to Quickshot and crew at the analyst desk to break down our next matchup.
Thank you very much, Joe. Great interview there by Kaigu. We'll have to see how well he can do against Vulcan. Vulcan, the team that's about to play in our very next game, they are taking on Gambit. And while the guys are setting up on stage, I want to poke your brains a little bit more. We were talking about Mancloud and Smithy before going to the break. Now I want to talk to our AD carry and support here about this matchup, because you had some very strong words about Genji's presence in this matchup, Double Lift. So talk me through the Zuna-Genji matchup.
I definitely think Zuna, while people will undervalue him as not instrumental to Vulcan's win, he is a playmaker. at heart. He likes to get in there, and that's, well, sometimes it goes bad, right? Like sometimes he just dies and randomly throws the game, but he is a playmaker. I feel like Genja, he takes a more passive approach. He's more of a utility kind of player. That's why he plays like Varus, those kind of champions. He used to be known for playing Urgot. And he takes kind of a more backseat role. He's very lane dominant. He likes to freeze, and he likes to be more of an anti-carry than a carry.
Definitely the case. I've actually seen Genja at one point just abandoning a team fight once and just start split pushing with Ashe, and it just indicated how unique he really is. And I've been told that Genja would never go in for a skirmish or a fight unless he knew 100% sure he would not get ganked and that he would survive. And it's a very unique style. Compared to Zuna, I think he only needs like a 40% chance of a possible kill, and he'll just dive in there and he'll go for it. So if they can abuse the fact that there's a lack of synergy sometimes between VUL and Genja, because they're relatively new bot lane, they might actually come out on top there.
Well, for me, when I look at them, I don't see either team as terribly reliant on those AD carries. I mean, we've been talking about the mids, and that's where a lot of the power on these teams, it's where a lot of the kills go. So I'm not quite so sold that their performance is actually going to seriously dictate this game, whereas if we took a team like Ozone in their current state, well, they're pretty reliant on Imp.
It always comes full circle with you, right back to Korean team.
It's the center of the universe, man.
Bread and butter.
So let's take a look then at those solo lanes. We've already touched on the Alex versus ManCloud, and I think that's probably the matchup that most people are excited to watch. So we'll leave that for the game. I want to poke your brains about the Darien versus Sid matchup. Let's start this one with Crepo. What do you think? How's this going to go?
I'm really interested if they're going to give Darien Shen. I don't know. Like Darien always seems to somehow get Shen in any like game where you expect it to not get it, and he does really well with it. But I hope they learn their lesson.
Vulcan put a pretty high priority on Shen. I doubt that they're going to actually let him have that. We'll probably see him something on more like Renekton or some other bruiser.
Stylistically, I see Psycho Sid and Darien as kind of similar. They tend to play very tanky utility top laners like Nasus, Zac, or Shen, as you said. And they're not very lane dominant players. Maybe Darien sometimes will have like a really crazy game where he dominates, but Psycho Sid definitely, I don't see him like crushing lane very much. He takes a more passive approach.
Well, I think they both share those traits. Thanks for the insight, guys. We are going to be throwing this over to Jat and Riv to give you the play-by-play for the game.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot, and let's get right to it. It's time for our second match of the day and the 7th game in Group B, North America's Vulcan versus Europe's Gambit. Let's take a look at the starting lineups. In the blue corner, it's going to be Vulcan. In the top lane is Psycho Sid, Xmithy in the jungle, ManCloud in mid lane, Zuna on AD carry, and Bloodwater on support.
And in the red font, we have Gambit Gaming, with Darien in the top lane, Diamond in the jungle, Alex each in mid lane, Genja on AD, and of course VUL on support.
Indeed, bringing up that support lane, and it's pretty interesting to, we have to remember Gambit did kind of switch out VUL and Darker throughout the season, so there's a bit of a change for them. But coming into this game, I think it's about the picks in bans. It's really going to alter it for these two. It usually does, but we heard Alex in an interview with Travis saying Vulcan and Gambit have similar picks to each other.
Yeah, and the craziest thing about Vulcan, especially when they're in the North American LCS, is how well they played the pick and ban phase against all of their competition.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, in the game yesterday when Gambit played Ozone, they just completely outpicked them as well. Kassadin ban right off the bat for Alex isn't something that Alex gets many bans against, at least here in the World Championships. I really want to see how the Assassin mid laners go for this one. If Ari gets through, I'm going to be shocked.
Super shocked. We had Xmithy playing Vi twice to set up a lot of those Assassin mid laner kills that ManCloud was able to come up with. So we may see Vi in the jungle, that Ari going out, Nasus and Shen, both being played by these top laners throughout the, or Shen, I should say, both these top laners in the past day. So with these bans, the first few they knew what they wanted, but now it's the game of what can we force them into.
Exactly, and when we look at the matchup between these two teams, you look at Darien versus Psycho Sid. The analysts were just talking about it. Those guys are very isolationist top laners. Gambit, somehow it seemed like Darien always gets Shen, but they're not even willing to let it through Psycho Sid's hands because he would just pick it right away. Remember, Psycho Sid played Nasus in his first victory for Vulcan. He played Shen actually in their defeat. It's not something they would first pick, however. It just means we have to wonder what he's going to be picking next.
The support has been kind of a neutral pick that teams have been going for. Bloodwater would much like to grab his Sona up if possible, but they're taking all the time in the world on this one. It's up to Benny, and they're letting him know what's going on.
The first few picks here are immensely important. Orianna's a very generalist pick we have here. Zuna has played a little bit of Ezreal. Obviously, both these AD carries tried their hands at Corki. Both won with it. but of course Corki has been banned away by Vulcan despite them being first pick. There's a lot of mind games here. It's almost like they're banning away a lot of their own champions, right? I mean, even look at Gambit's bans. Ari and Shen, they play those. Vulcan plays Corki and Eve as well. We've seen Smithy on those.
Yep.
Elise actually going over Jarvan in this pick, or even a Lee Sin. That's leaving the door open if Diamond wants to play Lee Sin right now.
Gambit looks like to have one Sona pickup. Voidal also a very, very big Sona player, if not one of his most comfortable picks for support as they come in.
Also Thresh. Those are his two main big supports right there for Voidal. And they basically have their pick of supports right now. Bloodwater really heavily prefers Sona, but he's been defaulting a little bit back to Zyra lately as well. So they're free to let this through. If Gambit decides to go with something like Twisted Fate here, it's a bit of a throwback there for Alex. And this means
there's a gamble. I like
man.
it. This is going to be an awesome setup here. So we're going to see the action coming from Alex into the mid lane. Teleport on that Twisted Fate with that ultimate. We'll have to see what he can do to create opportunities for the team, but that also kind of plays a waiting game. Now it's up to Diamond to carry that early game, as it usually is for a jungle, but we're not going to see Alex really making an impact until that 6, till that does.
It's really crazy that he's picked that so early. Yes, there were a lot of mid lane assassins already banned away, but this leaves the door open for ManCloud to pick whatever he wants into it. ManCloud has had huge amounts of success on Orianna, but I don't know about his Fizz. Fizz would be the pick if he could play absolutely anything right now to really try and shut down Alex in lane. Vi is expected for Xmithy. He played it both games yesterday. Heavy ganker as well, but if he does that, it also means Psycho Sid is going to be Elise in the top lane. We're going to learn a whole bunch in the next 5 seconds here about Vulcan's overall plan.
They are trying to hover onto that. Zyra should be going to Bloodwater here, and Xmithy will be locking in his own champion. So it looks like Vulcan is all right with showing quite a bit of their hand here, even in the first few picks. They are leaving 2 of those strengths that they have, though, that ManCloud's going to be able to counterpick now, at least from what he sees, as well as their AD carry.
He was already able to counterpick because they knew that the Twisted Fate is going the mid lane, but he gets a larger amount of the team comp, to look into from here. Once again, that Aatrox, we've seen that from both Diamond in the jungle and Darien in the top lane, depending on how they're feeling about things. They could very well do something like Aatrox Jarvan and just go in the top lane. That I don't think they're going to show it entirely yet, but there's no reason not to at this point, since they know that Psycho Sid is playing that top lane Elise. I really wonder what's going on here because there's no Shen for Darien, and once you get past that, you're kind of thinking, what does he really play after that? Because he always swaps around. It could be Renekton's, it can be Aatrox's, you never really know.
Well, right now, he's still holding down what they could lock in for him. Genja does put down the Kog'Maw. We saw the Triforce Kog'Maw coming in yesterday. It's been wreaking havoc in solo queue, says social media.
Oh, man. That's trouble right there. Wreaking havoc in more ways than one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyways, Kog'Maw, it's another throwback pick for Gambit here, and it kind of goes along with the throwback pick they had from Twisted Fate as well. So much success with that yesterday for Gambit, and Zuna is hovering over Caitlyn right now, which tells me he should pick Caitlyn right now. That is what he needs to be able to keep his distance from Genja in the laning phase, and Zuna should be playing Caitlyn in this matchup. The mid laner, I would actually expect to be Orianna right now for Vulcan, just because they do things by the book for the most part, and that makes the most sense right here.
Let's see what other kind of composition Gambit can come up with. So far, we are seeing a little bit of the mix between AP, AD, and the Orianna coming out. As you called it, it looks like ManCloud is going to be a little bit of utility and power for his team coming into this game.
So Vulcan's composition works very well there. They have a lot of crowd control.
Straight comp.
Enough AoE. It's actually a very almost balanced team composition with a bit of an emphasis on poke. But we look at Gambit here, and they need something to complete this as far as it goes. They have the one diver who goes in right now with Aatrox. So they need to decide if they're playing a poke comp with a bunch of squishies or a team that just goes in and has overwhelming threat. This last pick, whether it goes jungle or in the top lane, is going to have to support their poke game or go with something like Renekton, make the Aatrox go in the jungle, and then you're just everyone diving in and just hoping they get distracted by Genja. That'll also dictate how Alex plays the game, but man, these guys are really taking their time.
I think it
with these
has
picks.
to be some kind, I was going to say defensive. I thought it was going to be more defensive than that, but ladies and gentlemen, Diamond locking in, and we'll say his Lee Sin.
Yeah, it's been, we've seen a few highlight reels of his Lee Sin. He's really stormed the scene with it way back in Season 2, but right here for Gambit, this is very much about just finding skirmish fights.
They want to execute as much as they can. This isn't a composition that says, we'll find it when it happens. You're right. They want to skirmish.
Yeah, Lee Sin isn't the guy who just, like, even though he does go in, he goes right back out so much of the time. And that puts so much pressure on Darien to really be able to carry the team from a tank perspective in this game. And I was actually expecting something with a little bit more resiliency from Gambit.
Absolutely.
But as this is, it's going to make it a bit more of an exciting game because we're going to see more smaller, more frequent fights if Gambit's going to have a chance in this game. Vulcan is actually looking for a fair bit of control.
Both teams love fighting, so as we're waiting to spawn onto the fountain, let's check out and see who the viewers picked to win this one. According to LOLesports.com, 76% of you think that Gambit will walk away with the win. Monty chose Gambit, and everybody else chose Vulcan.
Well, we have to remember, Gambit's got a huge fan following here. They were actually picked to beat Samsung Galaxy Ozone yesterday as well, and then they did.
Yeah, 79 to 21%.
Only undefeated team in the group right now is this Gambit Gaming team. They were monsters in Season 2, so dominant, and were actually favored to win the Season 2 World Championship until they got upset in the semifinals by the eventual champions, Taipei Assassins. And coming in here, right beforehand, people were so down on them that many people called them a dark horse. Remember, this is Gambit Gaming. They have been legendary on the League of Legends scene, and now with all the boot camping they've been doing, all the practice they've had, they still have 4 returning members from the Season 2 World Championship. Here they go.
Let's see what they got for us, Jack. Game 7 of Group B, Day 2 here at Worlds. Ladies and gentlemen, Vulcan versus Gambit as both teams take to the Rift.
And this game is going to be very intense right here. We have boots coming out from Alex right now. He's going to be using those boots to try and not get harassed by ManCloud's command attack from Orianna. That's actually a fairly smart choice against an Ori, but it does mean his early game damage on Twisted Fate doesn't trade back very effectively. Twisted Fate also has very good combo ganks with Lee Sin because he can line up the resonating strikes so easily if he just locks in a gold card, and knowing he has that move speed advantage is another reason the boots are a smart choice in this matchup for Alex.
And boots 3 pots, as you mentioned. I like it. All the throwbacks coming in here in Group B Day. We'll see what the teams have for each other. And look at that. Gambit has a gold lead.
That's Twisted Fate. It's all on the cards. No, that's because the support has picked a gold mastery right here. You can see Bloodwater actually doesn't have that little total biscuit of rejuvenation.
Nope.
He decided for different masteries on Zyra.
So looks like top lane is going to be inhabited here by Zuna and Bloodwater for now. Looks like they're going to get a bit of vision of what's going on. Darien will also be able to give this communication to his team. It looks like it might be that 140 invade coming here from Gambit.
And Vulcan had success. Vulcan had success yesterday invading Fnatic as Fnatic was starting red buff. They actually got first blood onto Cyanide and ended up turning 2 kills in that level 1 exchange. But this is a much larger invade coming from both teams. Right now, Gambit just walked through a ward, put a pink. They actually don't think they were spotted here.
No way.
They're just going to trade reds.
They think they're running clean right now. Yep, trading those reds, but this is also what happened previously.
Yeah, there's no way these guys are dying for this one, though. Only because the AD carry supports can't come and support that lane. Both junglers will save their smite, and most importantly for the lanes, they know where the jungler is, so they can hopefully react accordingly.
ManCloud heading towards the top side, making sure Xmithy can walk out cleanly. We'll make sure that everything...
Oh, Darien, you are so greedy. Like, the AD carry... Darien's all alone in this lane. His jungler's not even close. There's a potential that he would be getting 3-man dove or that 3 people are approaching the lane. But because Zuna and Bloodwater haven't checked that brush, he's getting experience. This is... All right, they found him.
Just playing hide and seek for a little bit. Not too much you're going to get out of Bloodwater with the level 1, and Darien knew that, playing very calm, cool, and collected.
Thing is, he got almost all the way to level 2 because of that.
Right.
That was a really smart play. It now means he's effectively undiveable, knowing that Xmithy isn't close and that he was able to get level 2. Most of the time, they try to dive that guy while he's still level 1.
It's almost, I remember Voidboy saying in an interview, you know, that's what you have to do. Almost 2 full waves of sitting at your turret. That's why you see people take wolves. That's the first time I've actually seen that. So
bringing out all the stops for
awesome
Worlds.
Little play there. Mind games by Darien, keeping himself safe. All on his own accord. Alex Ish in the mid lane, farming it up with ManCloud. No pressure yet there, but they do have the hover around from Xmithy as he starts to head towards the bottom lane. He might match up with Diamond.
And Diamond going for some aggressive counter jungling. That's what Xmithy is normally tasked for. And knowing that it's a 2v1 in the bottom lane, Xmithy can't really fight back from Diamond. Voidal, you can see, is coming to bully back, so Xmithy has trouble getting this buff. He wants to wait long enough for a smite. He's not going to have the time.
A really great play by Voidal to keep and continue that pressure. The map awareness coming in, but the top lane's also going to get the same treatment on this one. Don't just think Vulcan is letting this happen.
Yeah, and they're trying to tank a few extra shots with plants as well while pushing this turret. It's turned into a bit of a turret race with a slight tinge of counter jungling going down as well.
Still that 100 gold lead for Gambit. Trying to stretch that out here in the early game. All lanes farming quite evenly to start it off. We had that boots pot start for the Doran's Ring and pot start for ManCloud. That's in the mid lane with Alexish. Something we'll have to keep an eye on, as ManCloud did have the NALCS record holding, actually across both, as Freak said, the pawns with kills. Voidal taking a bit of damage there with Diamond in the wing.
Psycho Sid actually flashed in for that one, nearly going down because Diamond was in the wings for a counter gank. That was a very aggressive move by Vulcan, and it puts him in a bad spot here because it's a 3v very low 2 people at the turret.
Trying to chug those health potions up. The skill shots, you can see Smithy trying to be just a bodyguard here for Sid. If Sid gets hit by that Q, they are fully going in onto this. Genja, full health. They know they have the coverage, and they are still trying to pressure it. They want to be able to keep that pressure in the top lane for Vulcan as well, but they're doing what they can to keep Xmithy alive with Psycho Sid in the bottom lane.
Whoa, Xmithy, you're getting crazy.
Level 4 to 4, they're going to Diamond! Could it be first blood? He pulls himself out just on the outside! It wasn't the Q! Psycho Sid couldn't hit it! The kill goes out! First blood going over to Voidal, and Genja gets the second one.
2 huge kills coming out for Gambit, and that's because Vulcan decided to go in a 2v3. They knew Gambit was going to be able to loop around the turret and go and get that one. They could have just taken the turret trade if they played conservatively, but they got greedy, went for first blood, tried to take it all, got very little in return.
That's actually pretty good for Vulcan coming up with a gold there. 700 still in the favor of Gambit, but if Vulcan can now switch their lanes up, stop this bottom turret from going down, they could really start to set something up nice for themselves.
And one thing that Vulcan just was amazing at in the North American LCS was finding ways to get leads early in the game. Likewise, Gambit struggles substantially if they fall behind early, which is why on paper in this matchup, 3 of the analysts took Vulcan over Gambit, because that's the way they were expecting this game to start. But now that Gambit has an 800 gold lead thanks to that bottom lane double kill, everything has changed. Gambit is actually in an incredible position to win this, knowing how well they play with leads. As far as their composition goes, Gambit still needs to go around and find a lot of smart fights just because they need to use their global map ability from Alex Each. It's still just such an amazing start for them.
I'm expecting Gambit to try and pressure that somewhat extended fight now with Alex Each with the ultimate up. They can really get a nice pursuit on somebody that's low health and trying to gimp away. A 1k gold lead now in place. We see Diamond on the back of Alex in middle if they try to activate anything there. Looks like they don't even want to use the Destiny. They just want to get the first kill.
And right now, Vulcan is playing the turret game against Gambit because they've lost the kill game right now. When they did the lane swap after taking the top turret, they're essentially assuring that unless Gambit swaps back, they can't get a turret of their own, and this 1-0 turret advantage should actually stick for quite some time for Vulcan.
And I love what both junglers are going through their heads. Mids are 6, we're probably going to fight each other. Let's get some defense here as well for us. 9.6 to 8.8. That gold lead being only closed a little bit. Darian leaving his lane here, giving that farm up. But it's not hurting him too bad whatsoever. He's 35 to that 15. It was 15. A big gap picked up there by Psycho.
Psycho Sid was dealing with Genja, Voidal, and Diamond procs that entire time, and then he ended up giving a kill back. The only reason that Darian is off taking jungle is because the lane is pushed up so far, and it's actually a dangerous place for him to be against Vi. Knowing that Xmithy is now level 6 for Vulcan, they need to pick their gank very smartly. Vulcan is actually should look to gank Alex, otherwise Alex is going to go and spoil one of Vulcan's ganks. Knowing that Xmithy is bottom lane means they have to be even more important about Alex potentially going in. Diamond going for ManCloud instead.
Second time coming around, using that dissonant speed steroid to get himself to safety. And looking at this bottom lane, Xmithy waiting in the wing and in the dark.
They know the flashes from Genja and Voidal are down, and if they go before the Zone is level 6, it's a kill.
Boom, right onto Genja, the assault and battery with the Vault Breaker. Genja goes into the bush. He's trying not to bring the fight to Voidal. He knew he was going down.
Awesome stuff there by Vulcan. Extremely well planned. And the reason the Twisted Fate couldn't come down to spoil that day is because ManCloud maintained enough presence in the mid lane. And they only timed that gank as well after ManCloud had already been ganked by Diamond. So all the potential for a counter gank or a turnaround and Vulcan not having a 3v2 were eliminated by what ManCloud was doing in the mid lane.
Vulcan playing that one very smart. 2-1 as they pick up their first kill here. Remember, they got the first turret of the game as well, and that has switched these lanes up back to even as they started in that 2v1 process. Now, 9 minutes into the game, it's only a 500 gold lead going in the favor of Gambit. It's being closed very fast by ManCloud and crew.
I can't wait for the rest of this Group B because all of these teams are just so closely matched, but with just different play styles. Vulcan, Smithy just has such crisp and clean ganks.
Yep.
And the biggest surprise to me about Gambit is how well this bottom lane with Genja and Voidal has been doing. Genja and Voidal's bottom lane hadn't been working very well. Genja was building all kinds of crazy builds, Tear the Goddess Varus, triple Thorns on everyone. Sure, Trinity Force Kog'Maw is still a little bit weird. Most people don't say it's working, but they're doing well in lane most of these games.
Boom, getting a bit of extra damage out for an extra, but the quick damage out. Smithy cannot respond to that. And this is one thing that, you know, we discussed with Crepo yesterday. If there is ever a ward near Diamond he knows about or in his jungle, he will pull anybody with a pink ward to clear that ward. He does not like wards around him.
Yeah, both these junglers are having pink ward battles. Smithy just trading back with Diamond, actually. Get out of there, Lee Sin. You can't trade with Smithy's Vi. And whoever actually has a lead has better chances of maintaining the pink ward control. If Vulcan goes for the wrong pink ward, TF's going to ult in on them and try to stop it, which actually puts even more pressure on Mandatory Cloud to keep Alex Siege from ulting. He's got to stay close enough to him that he can shockwave him with Orianna, but far enough away that Diamond can't gank him and kill him. It's a very tricky dance.
Alex Siege already level 9. Have not even seen the Destiny used in a pursuit of a fight for Vision, so they're holding that until the right spot. Him leaving lane, they want to make sure that doesn't give ManCloud too much of a lead.
And Darien all the way down here, knowing that Psycho Sid is off in the top lane with no turret as well to push because someone is down. This is Gambit actually just outmaneuvering Vulcan right now. You can't realistically go in and defend this 3 or 4v5.
All those pink wards, they are laying them down, getting a little bit of return on their investment here. Smithy on one side,
he might try and steal, but
he
against
does
Lee
have
Sin.
flash up. He does not get it. That's going to be tough. Lee Sin able to get the execute and the smite down. Smithy may go down there. Oh, they throw the command shockwave. That was quite unfortunate on the Vault Breaker, just out. He connects with it and he kicks it back. Oh man, double kill coming up for Alex.
Vulcan is being so greedy this game. They had an opportunity to push and farm, and he goes for a steal, but then a fight on top of it, knowing that it was a 4v5, and knowing Darien had roamed down for that fight because he warded inside and he saw the people of Gambit in that Dragon Pit. That was a poor decision right there by Vulcan, and Gambit capitalizes for the Dragon and a double kill.
4-1 now is the score. Gambit has yet to really activate anything else off of their Dragon. They've kind of evened up that gold they lost to the turret, but they're not moving off the kills just yet. However, you can see the pink wards 4 straight down the river in a line, keeping them safe from any invades, keeping Diamond's jungle clear.
Yeah, this is more to come back from here because there was the first double kill that Gambit picked up in the bottom lane. And then Vulcan was actually able to play smart and come back from it because Smithy came to the bottom lane, was able to gank down Gambit. Then Gambit made a great play for a Dragon, and Vulcan should have said, we'll give you that one, and keep playing smart. Vulcan did not, and that's why they're here. I mean, 3,000 gold down 12 minutes in. Knowing that Alex just got a double kill is not a smart play, or not a good place to be in.
The roam from him still only coming from walking down to that Dragon, so we're going to have a bit of a lull here for Vulcan to figure out what to do. Smithy only trying to clear the jungle himself, still grabbing up red, or maybe trying to get that attack down on the mid lane. Alex's flash is still up from that engagement, but ManCloud's is down. So again, Diamond procs in that half of the jungle, just continuously trying to figure out who he can harass.
He's been counter jungling very frequently against Smithy, and he's definitely inside the head of Vulcan right now. Smithy's made a couple calls that have backfired, and I think this is going to really temper the aggression that Vulcan is normally able to dish out early game. We haven't seen Smithy really past the halfway part of the map this entire 13 minutes, and that's because Diamond is destroying him in this jungle matchup.
So with this composition, what do we see Gambit trying to do? Because it's not what we thought. The level 6 Alex everywhere. They're kind of just controlling the map.
Exactly. It's Diamond doing a lot of work and Alex just making sure he farms. That's completely okay with Alex. If he is willing, if he's able to get 300, 400 minion kills like he did in the old days for Gambit, and Gambit's winning, no problem.
We see possible Hydra build coming out of Darian on that Aatrox. Looks like he wants to get out a maximum amount of DPS from his build, so he's going to go straight for that damage. We see again Diamond procs. Constant harass towards this mid lane. And bottom lane, Stranglethorn's down onto Voidal. Now it's going to be a quick one. Will they decide to activate this in mid knowing the pressure is there?
So Vulcan can get that whenever they want. Now it's about Diamond. He gets the Q. Destiny coming in.
They're going to find each other. There it is, a good shockwave, but it's only going to throw them about for a second. Gets the shield on. The burn is there from Red. They get the flash out for it, though.
They were actually a little bit worried he was going to get away from that one. Knowing that there was a kill in bottom lane, though, it looks like we're going to be trading some turrets. Vulcan pushing bottom, Gambit pushing mid.
It's textbook reaction by both teams here. You see that much force in the bottom lane, you got to make something happen in a different one. Gambit takes down mid, Vulcan takes down bottom. This still leaves Vulcan up 1 in turrets, but I may speak too fast here.
Yeah, Darian pops his ultimate. Aatrox gets an incredible amount of attack speed right here in the mid lane. They get the Sheen procs as well.
That worked.
Gambit is just capitalizing on pretty much everything right now. One thing I should note is Diamond used one of his pink wards to get in that gank for ManCloud, and normally like a pink ward for a kill is giving up a lot of the benefits of the kill anyway, but because they were able to get 2 turrets after it, it is more than worth it, Rick.
They're figuring out everything they need to do to make their money back right now. We'll see and take stock of the CS in the game in the mid lane. The ManCloud versus Alex each. We have 137 to 149 in a now completed Lich Bane coming out from Alex, so a lot of potential from that mid lane.
And look at how much damage the rest of Gambit is actually building into their items. Darian is not going tanky Aatrox right now. He's all about the damage because since they're trying to snowball ahead in this one, knowing that if they got late enough against Vulcan's team fight composition, they would fall behind and most likely lose this one, they're just going for it right now. Expect Darian to be ganking a whole bunch, especially with Alex, and just making things happen.
And some, not a resurgence, but a lot more of these Madrid's Razors coming out. We saw Dandy playing it on his Jarvan yesterday as well.
Well, Dandy got it on Jarvan because he'd fallen a little bit behind it and needed to clean up in the jungle more. Diamond is just buying it here because he's a fan of that item. It helps him counter jungle much quicker, and he's been doing so much of that against Smithy that he can just go for that. As well, when you build a Razor, it's good for the early game when you're jungling, but it falls off later in the game, which just builds more into the Gambit strategy right now of just winning early.
We'll see if they can continue their pressure. They have gone full force so far. Now 16 minutes into the game, they found themselves 5 kills. Every kill has been participated in by Diamond, and 2 of those in a double kill went to Alex. And from there, they've been able to control Dragon. That's coming back up in 30 seconds. We're going to have to see if Vulcan can really sway this one back into their favor. We just had it back there from Voidal.
I wonder how these next few minutes are going to play out, because Darian has been spotted by the ward, and he's also going up to clear this top lane. Gambit is up by so much gold right now that if they decided to get the next dragon, any fight contest by Vulcan, I feel, would just be a disaster. So Darian has to run down as quickly as possible to contest this dragon. Otherwise, Vulcan will actually be able to pick something up. And knowing the greed that Vulcan has displayed so far, he might be going for it.
He put himself in front of it. It made Smithy stop his punch, actually. The Vault Breaker keeps him close. They get an Ignite out of that one. Won't connect with the Q. It's a little bit too far, but I think everybody wanted him to.
So Crescendo is down, which means Voidal is basically not part of this fight. Alex went back to base as well, but he's Twisted Fate, doesn't care about things. Gambit is smart to just start this dragon. They are daring Vulcan to come in, and knowing what Vulcan's done in the past, they're willing to do so. But this could very well spell a huge lead for Gambit or a big comeback for Vulcan.
Completely sizing each other up right now.
They don't want to go.
Fight.
It's too dangerous.
They're absolutely not going to go. You are correct, Jat. Darian on the top side. They see the pinch that could come from Alex Ish and him. Oh, Darian taking quite a bit of damage, but I don't think they wanted to blow everything on him just yet.
The gold lead is really expanding right now, Riv. 6,000 after that next dragon. And Gambit actually just decided to back away from that one because mainly I think Voidal's Crescendo was down, and they absolutely needed it. I'm surprised Smithy's not clearing that wave in the top lane since he was the only one there, and that was nearly a level. of experience willing. To him, the map vision was more, like, not showing himself on the map was more important. I do not agree with that backing decision.
We'll see what Vulcan can do now. 6,000 gold down. That is not getting any easier for them, but they are still trying to contest every possible thing that they can. It's almost hurting them a little bit now. They have to size up what's going on, figure out when they can take the advantage. We saw 3 of them just a second ago on Alex in middle, but it almost seemed like Gambit was baiting that. It was Darian waiting on the side and Diamond waiting on the side. They want the shutdown on Alex, but they may go a little too far to try and get it.
Yeah, and just looking at the items right now, fighting is not that beneficial for Vulcan unless they find just the right fight. Knowing that Trinity Force is completed on Genja, it is so strong right now. The Trinity Force won't transition that well into other item combinations, but in the moment, Kog'Maw is incredibly dangerous.
Still moving in, definitely got that second rank. Ultimate up now for Kog'Maw, the shockwave going in! It only caught 2. Voidal was on the outside, so the crescendo is still there to disengage or completely turn this fight around. There's the ultimate. Voidal on the outside, his flash is down, or that would have been a quick fight coming in for Gambit.
So Vulcan tried to catch the team fight since they got a catch with a cocoon, but the damage just wasn't there.
No.
It's only an Athene Sun Holy Grail onto ManCloud. Psycho Sid just has a bit of magic penetration, is level 11. But that's the 6,000 gold lead right now. Difference. That's the levels that Gambit has been able to build up. Darian is 2 levels above Psycho Sid. Alex is a level above ManCloud. Every level is worth 500 to 700 gold depending on what champion you're on. The gold lead is more than just 6,000 in this game when you take into account the experience as well.
Putting that Caitlyn to work, finally getting themselves to the turrets. And Zuna takes a quick shot back. You gotta trade back and forth. Can't have your cake and eat it too. Zuna getting a little too aggressive there. They don't have any coverage of vision in the top side of that map. They can't afford to do things like that.
No, they cannot. Vulcan trying to just sit back, farm a little bit at this point. They know that Gambit does need to force team fights sooner or later. And if Gambit's not too aggressively counter-jungling or forcing around Baron, the percentage gold difference will remain even and maybe even close a little bit. So it actually is on Gambit to make a couple plays here, unless Vulcan runs into them.
You got the flash there out of Diamond. He actually pulls that over using his ward. Maybe that safeguard was just down from mitigating a bit of damage. We see the Bloodthirster, Caitlyn coming out instead of the Infinity Edge. These extended fights that Vulcan knows are going to be happening.
I'm wondering where Zuna's going with this. He might go for a static shiv as well, in which case he'd just be trying to get more wave clears so Vulcan can stall or just do a bit of a push strategy against them. Vulcan does have 4 ranged champions, so they got pretty good poke if they can set up extended sieges.
Vulcan doing a very great job at controlling some of these turrets. They finally push Gambit back with their gold deficit to take down the mid turret. We'll see that Alex Ish now gathers with his team in mid, and we'll see if Vulcan can now hold off what Gambit tries to throw back, because with that turret down, Vulcan is kind of searching now for where to go next. That turret was the last thing they had as a low-hanging fruit.
It's been a very interesting game, because if it wasn't for the 2 errors from Xmithy, where he basically baited Vulcan into multiple double kills, the game would be extremely close, and Gambit's team composition would be running into some dangers of falling off. But as it is now, since they have a 6,000+ gold advantage, I think they're going to be able to take that and just grow their advantage, and they're far enough ahead they can really make some aggressive plays. I think it's just a matter of Gambit getting the right ward control right now and then finding the fights with which they can engage.
2,500 gold in the hands of Alex over ManCloud right now. That's that. Zanya's coming in for him. The playmaking can also now start to come from Alex. We haven't seen the ultimate really start or end a fight. It's kind of just been to facilitate vision for his team to go in. So the way they're using the Twisted Fate, a bit different than usual.
Yeah, it's not that crazy all over the map action, but a lot of that has to do with Vulcan always being within their turrets. There's no positional errors aside from the few that Vulcan has made that are there to be punished by Alex's Twisted Fate. So instead, he's just farming up a storm. He's more than 10 CS per minute with Twisted Fate right now, and knowing that he's got those loaded dice as well, he's just head and shoulders above everyone else. He's nearing 10,000 gold already, only 23 minutes in.
The kills have slowed down somewhat with this first tier of turrets being down on both sides. We remember Darian popping his ultimate, and that last mid engagement allowed Gambit to take 2 in the mid lane. They haven't really tried to work off that, though. They're not invading the jungle. They're not trying to pressure in and get any pinch attacks in, like you said, waiting for those mistakes, but Vulcan not making them too often here.
And despite Vulcan being behind, they are still dumping huge amounts of money into wards. there are 4 pink wards within Vulcan's red jungle, and that is what they have had to do since they've lost those 2 middle turrets. They cannot control the entrances and exits by turrets, so they have to do it with pink wards. It's an interesting play there because they normally need that gold to come back into the game with items, but instead they're using it for vision control, which actually tells me Vulcan is looking to find a team fight somewhere in their jungle while Gambit looks for picks.
VUL almost being the first one. Yep, he took his cue. They go to Dragon. The Oracle's on VUL now, looking over onto Bloodwater. I don't believe he has one just yet. Still working with the pink wards on his side. So Gambit clearing out this map for themselves. They will start to pressure and push every lane past the river. Hopefully start to get some more attacks in the jungle. I fear that Vulcan could actually stall this out quite hard coming up here.
Well, they've been stalling
well, yeah,
for quite a while, so they can try and continue that trend. The later it goes, though, the faster Gambit can kill Baron, and the riskier and more difficult it will become for Vulcan to actually play this stall game without just risking falling too far behind and getting tower dove. Vulcan has been prioritizing pink wards in their red side of the jungle because they were hoping that Gambit would look for a fight around Dragon and then Vulcan could turn something around. But that's actually going to turn to Baron next.
Vulcan waiting in the wing. They see that ward come right over Wraiths as well. Gambit pretty much always has an idea what zone of the map Vulcan is on, what quadrant, if you will, if you split it up into that 4. And right now they know that bottom is just warded up. They aren't even really entering it. VUL's Oracle actually wearing off, so they don't know how safe they are, and it's not very safe.
They're going quite aggressive here. They shouldn't be going that aggressive here because they are extremely far behind, and the fight in the open would not do Vulcan well. If we think of Vulcan overall, so far in the World Championship, they started off pretty much as well as they could against Fnatic. And then ever since the halfway point of that Samsung Galaxy Ozone game, they've been on a downward trend. They went from having a lead in that Ozone game till 8 minutes later just getting beaten in a landslide defeat. And the start of this game against Gambit has not been much better. This is actually a 2-man Baron, now 3, that could get things done. And since Vulcan has not taken any ward control in the Baron area, Vulcan spent so much time pink warding their own red buff. Gambit should be able to take this one uncontested.
It's going to go. It'll take a bit. That Madrid's definitely helping out here. They're able to facilitate that. Throwing down Locket just like Solari. Oh, Smithy on the outside. He comes into the fight. Psycho Sid from the back. A lot of damage onto Smithy. Trying to peel off Diamond so he can't do much, but goes down. Will there be a follow-up? Oh, it's going to be the dive coming in from Darian. The crescendo comes out, and ManCloud will not be able to help the team. Still the chase coming in. Psycho Sid goes down, and there are kills across the map.
Gambit not making the mistakes right here. They forced the Baron because they just waited until they'd be able to 3-man it. Honestly, Gambit is playing world class right now. They're gonna probably move to 3-0 in the group here. They have the Baron buff and 3 recently deceased members of Vulcan. This is a strong turret push for Gambit.
Okay, people say you can't count them out. They perform when it comes time. This is going to be their first inhibitor turret, and it does not look like they are stopping. With 2 members down and 12 seconds on the clock for them, the inhibitor will fall in the top lane.
Yeah, this game just blew wide open for Gambit. They'd had the lead for a while, Vulcan stalled for a bit, and now Gambit is just doing what they want.
This whole base right now is Gambit's. They have a mid wave that was perfectly coming down that only helps them to get more objective here. That's the 3rd turret on this run, and it looks like Vulcan has the team up. They now want to engage. Those timers are up for them. Darian goes in, but it's a back off from everybody, and this is when Genja comes into play. Everybody's scattered, the living artillery to come down.
And they still have the Baron buff, regenning everyone up from Gambit to get 2 more kills. Gambit looks like they have a very quick victory here if they just finish it off.
A good body block there by Diamond. Is Genja still throwing that Bio Arcane and Living Artillery at his opponents. The first Nexus and the second turret fall at the same time. It's going to be the Nexus as well. 10-2. Gambit 3-0 here in Group B.
Gambit absolutely dominating this group so far. Vulcan looks strong. They took them down. They beat Ozone yesterday, and that only took them 27 minutes to dismantle that Vulcan team. Diamond Prox has got to be happy about that.
You know, they kept coming in with the same. He didn't have Ahri, and Alex did not need it. He brings out what I believe is the first Twisted Fate for us here at Worlds.
Yep.
And they were able to play it in a, not unorthodox way, but it wasn't the destiny to kill. It wasn't the destiny to, like you said, get somebody out of position, because Vulcan wasn't making those mistakes. So Gambit adapt, and they made it happen.
That was an exceedingly measured victory by Gambit. They, even with the aggressive composition and the ability to start fights from very different places, they only fought a couple of times, but always in incredibly important positions, right after the Baron, right before the Dragon, and they ended the game quickly because of it.
All right, chat. Well, that quick game, we're going to be sending it over to Quickshot and crew for a breakdown of Gambit's dominating victory.
Thank you very much, Riv. I want to start this one off by saying, Monty, how does it feel to predict one that none of the other analysts predicted?
Here we go. It feels fantastic. But to go back to that game, I was a little bit nervous for Gambit at the beginning because the composition that they had with Aatrox and TF, that's really snowball. You have to get an advantage in the early game. And so while that victory looked pretty one-sided, that's kind of what happens with that composition. It's either all up or all down on that.
And it seems like Vulcan kind of handed them that too. A couple early mistakes here really cost them in both side lanes.
I think the first mistake was just not picking Sona first. History has shown that if you take Sona away from Voidal, he's still going to do decent to well, but he's never going to have that game-breaking impact. He really likes those crescendos, and Gambit is a team that follows up really well on those crescendos. Not that these had the biggest impact, because I think the early mistakes, there's quite a few that they just made Vulcan lose grip of the game.
I think the biggest thing was when, a reoccurring problem throughout the game was when Gambit was taking objectives and Vulcan had lost something, like a dragon or a tower or something, they recalled instead of continuously pushing. Generally, it's not just like a free objective. You can get something out of it. Vulcan literally just made it a free objective.
On top of that, right after the objective was taken, they went in and started contesting. Like they were taking Drake. They were setting up. Can we fight? Can we fight? Can we fight? No, we can't fight. Let's run away. Oh no, let's try it anyways.
Yeah, they
like
just
Smithy flashed into the Drake pit or Vault Bucket, and I can't remember. But he went for the fight instead of using his second dash ability to get out. Drew Orianna in and got them baited. And that was not even the worst mistake. I think really early in the game, that's where they threw it.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at that first fight around the bottom turret for Vulcan, where we had Smithy down there with Psycho Sid, and then we had the three members of Gambit hovering around the turret. In the meantime, the duo lane of Vulcan had taken down that top turret, but no damage pretty much to the Vulcan's tower, and yet they stepped into their own jungle when they didn't know.
They went for the fight.
They surprised themselves with how much damage they did onto Lee Sin, and they thought they could go finish him off, but they had used all their abilities. There was no more damage to come, and feeding Genja 2 more kills on that Kog'Maw got him going very early.
Smithy is a jungler that actually knows the damage output of his vibe really well. You could see that sometimes he's even surprised Diamond procs in some trades in the jungle, but they just chased too far, and I just think the entire idea of going into that brush near double golems to chase Diamond procs off was not the best, especially when you consider that top lane, they were just hammering on that tower. It was going down. It was 20% from being killed, at which point bot lane was 80% health. If they just turtle a little more, they take top tower, rotate it down the bottom, they had superior Drake control, they could push it, which allowed then Smithy to pressure Alex H more, which would give them no opportunity to Destiny out. But they just... Did you?
I know we were so close.
Oh God! And even though we harp on Vulcan for all their mistakes, I gotta admit when I'm wrong. You know, Gambit played pretty well. They have very interesting map movements that a lot of NA teams wouldn't normally expect. I'm just gonna say interesting because those are not normal for us. The Drake.
Break it down. What's specific now? Because and the reason I want to interject here, I overheard Crepo and Monty talking about the rotations from Gambit, and we weren't painting a pretty picture. So I want to hear your thought, first of all, double lift, and then bounce it to Crepo and Monty.
I think, first, their lane setup for the 2v1, I felt like that was a little bit unorthodox. Generally, you would want your Kog'Maw to lane against Caitlyn because that's a pretty decent matchup. That kind of threw them off. Like, who would send an Aatrox of all champions into a 2v1? You know, that's very strange to me. Another thing is they're a super aggressive dragon movement. The second they got any leeway to get it, they just hopped on it like a Korean team would. And another thing that really stood out to me was the fact that they would just randomly 5-man bottom lane. And it wasn't random, but it was very surprising. They 4-man with the TF very aggressively.
I don't think you can really say Gambit chose to do that, because if you look back at the early game, Vulcan had the superior ward control. They knew exactly what Gambit was doing. Gambit actually had the chance to steal their red buff away, and they just pretty much traded red buffs. I feel Vulcan could have contested that, especially if you have the knowledge of what's going on level 1. Mirroring is probably the worst thing you can do. I think they could have punished that invade, because if you look back at the early game as well, Lee Sin could have actually dove earlier, like the 3v1 dive that we saw in the other game that last night as well. which can really hurt a lot of teams, could have happened earlier. They could have dove the bot lane at least way earlier. They just chose not to. Both junglers actually went for double buffs, a few jungle camps, and then went into the respective lanes. So I feel Vulcan could have exploited their wards a lot more early.
For me, one of the big points, too, was we saw the itemization from Gambit while we were talking about the lack of rotation. So Gambit chose to build Ravenous Hydra on Aatrox first and then followed up with Lichbane on TF. And these are typically items that you get on those champions if you're looking to split push. But they didn't really split push. And at one point, Vulcan had filled their lower jungle full of pink wards, expecting that if they could get vision control, they could make a pick. But then Gambit just all stayed as 5. So it was kind of like a strange situation where I feel like Vulcan tried to guess what they were going to do, and then Gambit second-guessed them in response. It was pretty weird.
Let's take a look at the bigger picture. We step back and you know, we can all sort of agree that there was some misplays from Vulcan in terms of positioning certain engagements, things like that. There was no super standout individual player. I think Diamond Prox had some very good initiations with his Lee Sin, and you cannot discount the impact that it had in those very first few fights, because this was a low kill scoring game. Is it all just about the map and these weird map rotations that we've been talking about? I mean, Gambit just seems to be in control.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the Lee Sin there specifically from Diamond, because they've been practicing against the Chinese teams a lot, which is what you were referring to the earlier games where with the 3v1 tower dives. And they actually took a lot longer to pull off their 3v1 aggression there. It could have gone bad for them, but again, the Vulcan were the ones that overextended and sort of handed them that Chinese playstyle, what they wanted to go with.
I really feel like Gambit really did well. I don't want to take anything away from them, but they handed Vulcan a few possibilities in which Vulcan actually opted out of.
Well, guys, we do have to slowly start wrapping this one up. So let's take a look at how that victory for Gambit has affected those Group B standings. So we'll pull the graphic up for you in a second. You'll see a Gambit sitting 3-0 at the top of the group. And you can see Vulcan, they're currently 1-2 right now. So it's different. I mean, analysts, you guys were thinking that Vulcan was going to pick that one up. Gambit solidly in #1 position.
They did fail us. I'm sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad too. Yeah.
It's okay. We're back to even now.
Well, guys, I think we have to take a look.
Except for Crepo. Crepo's down to the
We'll get some time. We'll get some time to hammer on Crepo's inability to predict correctly. Right now, we need to take a look at some of the Twitter responses, because earlier today we asked you guys which pro do you think is making the biggest impact on Group B and why? And here's some of the responses that you have had. At Juka Julian, he says, Xpeke has been the best mid laner in Europe, the region with the strongest mids, making him the most impactful players. He's more than one player right now. Crepo, as a European player, and seeing Fnatic's play games already, what do you think?
I think Pekka has the potential to be one of the most impactful players, but he hasn't shown it yet.
Ooh, big words. But it's the truth as well. So Lissandra left a lot to be desired yesterday. At Farron Corey, he says that ManCloud's got my vote for the biggest player in Group B. I felt like Xpeke went in underestimating him yesterday. I see Double of nodding his head there.
People are going to underestimate ManCloud, dude, because he's underexposed. But obviously this game, when he gets shut down early, you know, it's just over for him. But if he gets a good start like he did in the first 2 games,
would you say he got shut down?
I think he got baited by that dragon fight and died to Lee Sin at a bad time for Orianna, because Orianna's not an early game champion. She needs to get to mid late game pretty fast.
He did dodge quite a few Lee Sin ganks in mid. Like Diamond Prox was around mid like 2 or 3 times, and that actually allowed Smithy to get that stealth gank on bottom, which basically gave Vulcan almost a chance to get back in until like the dragon happened that Double mentioned.
I think it was definitely the side lanes there for Vulcan that cost them.
ManCloud OP.
I do like, though, that our second Twitter answer guy sort of one-upped our first answer.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you say Peke? I say ManCloud. He beat Peke.
Well, let's see how the third one goes, because at... Yeah, I'm sorry. There's no ways. At Chaz Wazki, I'm sorry, dude.
What did you call him?
Yeah. Lupa is the deciding factor of Group P. If he's good, Samsung Galaxy Ozone rolls. Getting shut down will be a sure loss. So what do you think about this one? Lupa, the super sub?
I think we saw them lose without Looper getting shut down too hard, and I think that fans of Ozone should be very concerned, especially after the Mineski game as well. They're just not looking tight. They're not looking coordinated. Their vision control is frankly not very good either. and the decision-making has been questionable at best. So I think their next game is going to be make or break, really, for Ozone.
There seems to be a few cracks in all the parts of their game, even the champion pools. And
yeah. Well, let's say one last Twitter response here. At TT Carasso, hands down, the biggest playmaker goes to Alexish. His plays with Ari helped his team grab the win versus Ozone. What do you think, Kobe?
I mean, we've listed a lot of mid laners here. Alex definitely up there, and Gambit being 3-0. Hard to argue with that. Surprising that we haven't said anything about Faker, because even though his team did lose a game, he played really well in all of his games. Wait, are we on the wrong group there?
I think we're in the wrong group. Yeah,
that's why we didn't
I think Twitter would mention
it up, dude.
We were trying to be nice. We're trying to be nice.
We still love you.
I think the answer is in the question. Which most impactful player?
Let's carry on that note. Congratulations to the winners of those Logitech Gaming masks. Those were some awesome tweets, guys.
And remember to keep hitting us up with your answers. We're still at LOL Esports, and be sure to use the hashtag Worlds.
All right, now it is time for you to make a call on our third match of the day. It is going to be Ozone versus Fnatic. Let's keep this one a little bit more brief, and we'll start this one off with Crepo. Ozone or Fnatic? Who's going to win and why?
I think Dada's going to be slowly recovering from yesterday, and Fnatic didn't look that strong. If Fnatic picks better, they stand a chance, but my money's still on Ozone.
Picks better meaning not Yorick, I assume.
Part of it is Yorick, yes.
Double lift. Who's going to take this one?
As much as Fnatic is, the #1 seed or whatever, I think
whatever.
or whatever. Yeah, not a big deal. The region is meh. No, I'm just kidding. I think Dandy is going to out-jungle Cyanide so hard, and that's why I think Ozone's #1 here.
Well, Monty, what do you think of this?
I'm going down with the ship with these guys. I'm picking Ozone as well. I think that both teams have looked shaky, not up to the normal standards of their own play, but I think Ozone is going to start recovering. I agree with that.
I went back and forth so many times on this one. I think this is really, really close, but again, I have to choose Ozone as well. Fnatic so far, they didn't really show up. Very impressive in day one.
I also think that this is a hugely important match to both teams, because if whoever drops the loss here is going to have an even harder time making it out of groups, and this may in fact decide to a certain extent who leaves in the end.
Well, once again, all four of our analysts are in agreement, and we'll have to see if they sink or swim this next matchup. Guys, we do need to jump to a very quick break, but when we return, Ozone and Fnatic take to our Rift in the third match of the day. Don't go anywhere. The Season 3 World Championship live from Los Angeles. We'll be right back, and like Riv always says, don't touch that browser, guys.
Group B.
Couldn't hit it. The kill goes out. First blood going over to Voidal, and Genja gets the second one.